from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on AgDay, sorting through the latest supply and demand data from USDA.
Yeah, the market really was able to see the confirmation that 2018-19 ending stocks are going to be smaller.
Dramatic disappearance. How quickly are we losing farmland? When is it too late to apply nitrogen? We'll examine in Farm Journal College TV. Plus, responding to consumer demands about what's inside prepared foods.
This law is to require disclosure of foods that are bioengineered.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. Well, USDA's latest WASDE report projecting a large drop for world corn stocks next year and a major bite out of U.S. soybean carryout next year. But the market seemed unfazed by what some analysts viewed as a bullish report. With planters still rolling, USDA projects the 2018 corn crop at 14 billion bushels. That's based on average yield of 174 bushels to the acre. New crop corn stocks are pegged at 1.6 billion bushels, down 500 million bushels. Now, USDA forecasting soybean production at 4.2 billion bushels with average yield of 48.5 bushels an acre. And U.S. new crop ending stocks for 2018-19 are projected at 415 million bushels, down 115 million. But what caught the market's attention was the big drop in global corn stocks. ProFarmer editor Brian Grady is here to sort through the numbers. Brian.
Looking globally, USDA sharply reduced carryover projections for the new crop marketing years for corn, soybeans, and wheat there as well. And I think that that does add a little bit even more bullish flavor to these reports. And probably the most bullish is the corn market, because we see a sharp 500 million bushel reduction in domestic ending stocks and a huge year-over-year decline in global ending stocks, which would make them the smallest since the 2012-13 marketing year. From now forward, it just depends on what Mother Nature does with weather, how the crop develops here domestically and around the world, and where those ending stocks end up falling into place. For the editors of ProFarmer in Cedar Falls, Iowa, I'm Brian Grady.
Thanks, Brian. USDA is expecting a decline in winter wheat production this year. Their forecast is 1.2 billion bushels, down 6% from a year ago. Now, based on current conditions, the Ag Department puts the national average yield at just over 48 bushels an acre, 2 bushels lower than last year's average. And breaking it down, the Kansas winter wheat yield comes in at 37 bushels an acre, down 9 from last year. Oklahoma's wheat yield is 26 bushels to the acre. And looking at cotton, while USDA in March said it expects cotton acres to climb, the WASDE report shows a drop in the 2018 to 2019 production. That's from the ongoing drought in the Southwest. USDA also calling for lower yields from last year's record high. Well, the market also getting a look at U.S. red meat and poultry forecast next year. The agency forecasts 2019 beef production to rise. That's on higher slaughter numbers as well as heavier carcass weights. And pork production also expected to grow next year. That could come from more farrowings as well as pigs per litter. Hog weights are also expected to climb higher next year. Well, there may be a glimmer of hope for farmland values in the Midwest. The Federal Reserve District in Chicago, which covers a majority of the Corn Belt, says farmland values are unchanged from a year ago, showing signs of stabilization. Agricultural land values were unchanged in the first quarter of 2018 compared to the same quarter of 2017. However, they edged up 1% from fourth quarter of 2017. The Chicago Fed says the increase in the district marked the 5th quarter in a row without a decline in such values. Now, state by state, Indiana and Wisconsin saw 3% climbs. In the St. Louis district, which covers the southern Corn Belt, quality farmland values fell 1.4% in the first quarter of the year from a year earlier. This is the first decline since the second quarter of 2017. And in contrast, ranch land and pasture land values rose sharply for the second consecutive quarter in the district. Now, farmland and ranch land may be disappearing at an alarming rate. The American Farmland Trust found the loss of farmland is serious and will only accelerate unless action is taken. The report found that over 30 years, nearly 31 million acres of farmland was lost. That's equivalent to all the farmland in Iowa. And 11 million acres of that was considered some of the best farmland in the nation. Looking at where the farmland is going, the AFT found that urban sprawl ate up about 59% of the lost land. Well, the U.S. Drought Monitor showing some improvement in Texas, but the drought-stricken areas in West Texas and the Panhandle seeing hot and dry conditions persist. The U.S. Drought Monitor shows 60% of the state is covered in drought, a 6-point improvement from last week. The area considered to be in D1 or moderate drought, improving 9 points. But the 2 to 5 inches of rain fell across central and southern Texas, not the Panhandle. And moving to the Corn Belt, drought conditions introduced in parts of Minnesota, Missouri, and Illinois for the first time. While some parts of Illinois are colored in the Drought Monitor, others say they are holding on just fine for now.
And then when things turned, it just turned, and now it's almost 80 degrees today. It's sunny. The soil's dry. We're really burying beans deep just to get them in moisture.
Kirk completed his spring planting earlier in the week. All right, Mike Hoffman joins us now with a look at crop comments this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Tyne. Well, you've heard of our I-80 planting tour. Ross Plumberg is sending us an update of his Highway 36 planting tour. Ross is located in Nemaha County, Kansas, where he's helping the neighbor finish up with corn. According to the Drought Monitor, moderate and severe drought areas are improving, but still high. 80% of the state is under a moderate drought. Nearly 60% is considered severe. Jeff Frank in Sac County, Iowa, showing us some emergence in the field. The crop progress report shows 3% of corn has emerged, 5 points behind the 5-year average. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see the plains mainly as we head through the morning hours are going to be fairly windy. As we head through the afternoon, it's going to spread into the southwest, a little bit of the northeast as well. Heading into the day tomorrow, it'll start off once again windy in the central and southern plains and become windy in the southwest. A fair amount of the country actually will be a little bit breezy as we head through the afternoon hours tomorrow. We'll talk more about your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Still ahead, we dig deeper into Thursday's WASDE report with Sue Martin and Naomi Bloom. And when is it too late to apply nitrogen to your fields? We'll discuss at Farm Journal College.
I'm Michelle Rook. New biotech labeling laws are set to go into effect this summer. We'll give you a glimpse of what they might entail coming up.
AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
In agribusiness, a mixed day on the grain board after the WASDE report. We head to Chicago for an update from the CME.
We had a USDA report out earlier today, which finally gave us some new news. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough new news to really give us a sustainable rally. I want to start looking at the corn contract. July is the month of interest for us. We started out on firmer footing, but the inability to get that extra leg and boost forward, I think, invited some of the funds to reduce some long exposure and really the producers to step in as well. The inability to grind higher led to some risk removal, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this market come back a little bit more. We're still relatively friendly, the corn market, over the intermediate term, but we've had a really nice run over the past couple of weeks. So as far as the soybeans are concerned, we had a relatively friendly report again, but failed to maintain that price action. A failure to maintain positive price action after a bullish number is relatively bearish in our minds. This has been Oliver Slope with Blue Line Futures from the floor of the CME.
Here now on Ag Day with Naomi Bloom and Sue Martin joining me to really break down this WASDE report that we saw on Thursday. Naomi, you start us off. Really, what was the biggest surprise for you?
Yeah, the market really was able to see the confirmation that 2018-19 ending stocks are going to be smaller. And so we've been talking about that for a long time, and so we had that confirmation today. The surprise that I'm thinking the most there was the soybeans in terms of exports expected to be strong into next year for the soybean market. So to me, that's really encouraging that our relationship with China is going to be evened out and everything is going to work out.
Yeah, and there are still a lot of concerns about trade, but when you look at new crop and you look at the 18-19 marketing year, that really was where we saw some positive news, right, Sue?
It was, and I think the carryout at 1.682 billion bushels, larger than the average guess, but when you looked at the exports, the USDA didn't have our exports up as much as we thought they would. In fact, they declined a little bit. And with the problems in Brazil and the problems in Argentina on corn production going down and everything else going on in China and what have you, it seems to me that's probably the smallest or the largest carryout number that we're going to have on new crop corn. So I see it as an evolving thing that is just going to keep getting better.
And that's new crop, but what about old crop? What about those farmers that are still setting on old crop, Naomi?
Yeah, we have plenty of supply out there, and the USDA
Yes.
report confirmed that today. So anytime you see the market rally, it's an opportunity to get moving on those cash sales. And the market, I think, didn't respond with any big triumphant prices to higher today because we didn't have that type of new bullish news that the market needed. Corn is up against some major resistance levels. It didn't have that news to get through those resistance levels on the charts, so kind of back into that trading range we go until we get into the summer weather.
You agree with that?
I do. I agree. I do think that we've got highs coming. I'm looking for highs in June this year. And then we break down, and I'm looking for lows in August. Then I think we turn around and we work our way back higher into next year. I think we're in an evolving market. Keep in mind, corn again had an inside range year last year too, and I just don't see corn going through the low side. I think it's the highs coming out, and that includes the old crop as well.
All right, Sue and Naomi, thank you so much for joining us. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll have a check of weather today on Ag Day.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779 or visit stewartpeterson.com. Talk markets one-on-one with Sue Martin. Call Ag and Investment Services toll-free at 1-800-527-0051 or visit her website, www.futurescashinfo.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Time now to check weather with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, big weekend, Mother's Day weekend. How is the forecast shaping up?
Well, for most of the country it's going to be okay, but there will be a couple of systems moving through the northern tier of states the way it looks. And this morning you can see there are some showers and thunderstorms through the northern Mississippi Valley, a little bit of rain and mountain snow in the northern portions of the Rockies. High pressure dominating the northeast and the southeast at this point. But in between there will be that area of rain showers moving through mainly the southern portions of the Great Lakes, northern Illinois, far northern Indiana as we head through parts of the day today, and that whole system will continue to move east. The one coming out of the Rockies will start to spread some showers into the Black Hills and southwestern portions of North Dakota as well. Heading into tomorrow morning to start the weekend, you can see some scattered showers, lower Great Lakes all the way into lower New England, and north central portions of the Rockies, far northern plains seeing a little bit of rain shower activity, some snow in the highest elevations of the Rockies. And then heading through the day tomorrow, that's basically the focus from the north central Rockies, north central plains, all the way into the southern portions of the northeast. There will be those areas of showers from time to time. It's not going to rain the whole time in any of that area, but there will be some spots, and a few spots in the southeast may get a pop-up shower or thunder shower during the afternoon, but high pressure generally dominating your area. Precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours from the mid-Atlantic into parts of the northeast. There's been some spotty activity. Also the north central plains into the northern Rockies, and that's going to be the focus again over the next 36 hours. If you happen to get several showers in a row from, let's say, South Dakota through southern Michigan into Pennsylvania, you may end up with an inch or an inch and a half of moisture over the next 48 hours or so, but it'll be scattered. It won't be the entire time the way it looks to me. And you can see south of that frontal system, we're talking mostly 80s and 90s, even some upper 90s showing up in the drought areas of the panhandle of Texas. But look north of the front in the chilly air. It's only in the 50s for high temperatures this afternoon. Lows tonight going to drop into the 40s across that area, even some 30s in the northern portions of the Great Lakes, but pretty muggy south of there, 60s and 70s, and more of the same tomorrow. You can really pick out that frontal system right there pretty easily when you look at the temperatures. As far as the jet stream goes, that's some pretty chilly air in the northern and northeastern portions of Canada, and most of that's going to stay there, but we are going to see a little bit of activity again, kind of moving along that jet stream through the north central states. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Spokane, Washington, first of all, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, high of 69 degrees. Clinton, Oklahoma, sunny, windy, and quite warm, high of 90. And finally, Flint, Michigan, cooler with occasional light rain, high around 50.
Well, next we're off to Farm Journal College. We'll examine the timeline for nitrogen applications. And still to come, USDA prepares to release its proposed plan for a national food label to identify GMOs in the recipe. We'll follow the bumpy path of rulemaking later on Ag Day. Well, as planting races on, it's just starting for some. So when is it considered too late to apply nitrogen? In this week's Farm Journal College, Ken Ferry weighs in.
Situation, it really depends on what shape the crop is in itself, where that risk comes in. This crop's taking up probably about 10 pounds of nitrogen a day up through that pollination window. At pollination, it does shut down for a while, and we get this thing pollinated. As soon as we're good and pollinated, there's going to be another 2.5 weeks or so of some pretty significant end uptake. So really, you'd like to have it on by pollination. You're really closing the window of adding anything extra. When you get into early milk or late milk stage, you're probably not going to be able to change the outcome within itself. But if I was pollinating and I had severe nitrogen deficiency, I would probably still make a run at it. But if the corn was healthy, I saw a little bit of cannibalization at the bottom. It's hard to put any of our dry applications on with an airplane without burning some of the leaves. So you got to be careful that you don't burn more from the nitrogen application than you fix itself. But really, by tasseling time, you're getting close. If you're under irrigation, you can work a week or so past tasseling to definitely fix any deficiencies that you might have out there. Without it, you're going to need rain after you make that application.
Next, we follow the rule-making process when it comes to GMO food labeling.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Well, USDA is scheduled to release draft rules today for a national food label that identifies bioengineered ingredients in food products. Congress passed legislation in 2016 for a federal label to prevent a patchwork of state labeling laws. Michelle Rook reports from Washington that the proposed draft could change before final rules go into effect.
USDA is set to release new biotech labeling rules soon, but there's still some uncertainty about what this program may entail. USDA just opened the comment period on the proposed 106-page rule, which defines a bioengineered food or ingredient.
This law is to require disclosure of foods that are bioengineered. That means they contain genetic recombinant DNA.
Randy Russell represents the Coalition for Safe and Affordable Food and says the rulemaking presents several possible ways to determine what foods will be covered by the final rule and what the disclosure will include and look like.
The options that are available to a food company are going to be on pack with words, a symbol that is non-disparaging, or electronic disclosure.
USDA Undersecretary Greg Ibas says the Ag Marketing Service wants to craft requirements that are straightforward. He says USDA is looking for public input on a number of these key decisions before a final rule is issued later this year.
We'll look forward to the opportunity to listen to not only agriculture in those proposed rules, but also to consumers.
Farm groups have also been involved to make sure USDA stays true to the law and preserves this technology.
It should help advance information to consumers about the food, but do so in a way that does not discriminate against agriculture biotechnology.
We're expecting that it'll be the QR code that we had worked so hard to achieve. There's folks out there that would like to denigrate this new technology, and they would want to see a skull and crossbone requirement on the package.
However, Ibas says the law isn't likely to prohibit marketing gimmicks used to claim products are non-GMO that were never genetically bioengineered.
I think that's something that maybe we'll have to wrestle with over time. It's not our immediate focus with the bioengineered food disclosure regulations.
The deadline for the disclosure standard was July 29th, but Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue says it may be delayed.
I'm still hoping for this summer, but it does not look like we will meet the deadline that we had insisted upon.
In Washington, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Thanks, Michelle. Under the proposal, certain foods will be excluded from the disclosure. For example, a multi-ingredient food, which would not be subject to the standard. USDA will take comments on the rule through July 3rd. Well, that's all the time we have this Friday morning. We're glad you tuned in. For Mike Hoffman and all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great weekend in Farm Country.